being committed to a process. Being committed to a process is everything. Whether it's something you're trying to achieve, something that you're trying to recover from, something that there's something you need to let go of your life, and like losing weight. If you want to let go of losing weight, you want to let go of people, you want to let go of habits that you have, or if you want to, there's something you really want to achieve, it takes commitment. And obviously it's not rocket science, but it's something that you realize until you're fully committed to something. Like, you know, people have wants and needs. There's things that you want and need, and you have goals, and you set goals, and maybe you write them down, maybe you don't, but maybe they're in your head, or maybe you've got them written down somewhere. But being really committed to the process of achieving those things is quite a different thing to then just, you know, wanting them. For example, there's a difference between wanting and a commitment to it. And one of the things that made me really think about this recently was funny enough, like downturns that I have in my health and my mood. And the reason this is like really important is because it relates to so many different things. Like somebody dealing with, like, say, stress or depression or anxiety, or even, like I said, like weight loss or whatever it is, you're going to have moments where you're going to have downturns in your motivation and your ability to be able to complete certain tasks, to start moving towards those things that you're really committed to. And those are the times where the commitment really makes the difference, because when you have those downturns, it becomes a lot harder. It's really easy. An easy thing is to give up. And like the perfect saying is, if it was easy, everybody would do it. That's why you don't see everybody with a six-pack. You don't see everybody making $1 million a year, and you don't see everybody, you know, making their way through mental health issues or trauma issues. Unfortunately, some people just don't make it through it, whether it's, you know, they don't make it through it like physically and their body just gives up and breaks down, or their mind gives up and breaks down, and you know, they end up in a situation where they've either can't go on with life, or they've taken their own life, and they end up in a situation where they just can't go on, basically, unfortunately. So the commitment really makes all the difference in those downturns. And the reason why I was thinking about this is because, like, I was sick a few days ago, and the process for me after what I've been through is that I'm immune suppressed. So more often than not, I would probably get sick at least once a month through my whole healing journey. And I would have this situation where, you know, I'd be on this really good up, like I'd be working towards what my goal was. So my goal and my commitment was to myself to get back to, I guess, being a better version of myself than I was before. And I wanted to do everything possible to do that, not just for myself, but for my family, for having to go through what they went through, and obviously being in a terrible situation where I'm like, I never want that to happen again. I'm going to try and figure out why it happened, how I can prevent it from happening, and I'm going to be committed to the process of just being a better version of myself, both physically and emotionally. So when I got to those periods of time where I'd get sick, and unfortunately I was going through a healing journey with no immune system at the same time as raising a toddler. And so that means, you know, the toddler, you know, Teddy was in daycare. He would bring home a new sickness every second week. I'd get the sickness. Long story short, for the better part of the last 3 years, I've probably been sick at least, say, you know, at the time has actually been expanding between sicknesses, but I'd say on average I'd be sick a month out of every 2. So probably 6 months of the year I've been unwell with some type of virus, and I've got you know, issues with my sinus and my chest and all that sort of stuff, which has got something to do with my immune system, immunoglobulins they call it, which I'm deficient in. So I have this problem with my respiratory system. So every time I pick up a virus, I get sick really fast. A cold can turn into a fever, can turn into pneumonia pretty fast, and I can end up in hospital. And I was only actually just in hospital about maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks ago now for a similar thing. Got a cold, probably didn't take it quite easy enough, got a little bit run down. I ended up, after I went on a holiday, and then ended up in hospital for a few days with pneumonia, on antibiotics and all that sort of stuff. So the reason this is relative to the process of commitment is because when you're on that path, and you get dragged down to being bedridden, say once every few weeks or so, when you're on a path to be like, I want to be the healthiest person I can possibly be, and then you're restricted by these things like, sicknesses or whatever it is, there's a massive downturn that happens. There's a downturn that happens in my mood, my energy, and all that sort of thing. And the thing is, when you're sick as well, my brain would kick in with that fight or flight mechanism where it was like, I know what sickness is. I've just spent this X amount of time in hospital. I know what it feels like to be fatigued. Fatigued means sick. Sick means cancer. Cancer means it's coming back. And I just go through this loop of this process where I'd get completely stressed out and have these really unhealthy, distorted cognitions about every single time I got sick, or every time I felt a little bit off or unwell. I was immediately like, I'm gonna relapse. I'm gonna get cancer again. That's just what's gonna happen. I know what this feels like. I know what it feels like to be fatigued, and this is what's happening right now. One of the massive things I had to work through in that process was it is normal to be sick. Like, accepting the situation. Yeah, it's not normal to be sick like every few weeks or so, but people get sick on average 3-4 times a year out of 12 months. And it's a natural thing because your immune system is actually working. It's going, okay, there's something here. We need to fight. We need to pump out our antigens, and we need to get rid of this virus or this sickness or whatever it is. And that's exactly what needs to happen. Your body needs to go through that process of downturn for healing. So it drops your energy a bit. Your body's kind of working overtime to get it fixed. And you have these ups and downs in that process. And if I could relate it to a few different things, like, anxiety and depression were very similar in those situations, because it's like you get a downturn in your mood. Obviously, you feel a bit depressed. The balance of how you're thinking and feeling about yourself changes. You get fatigued, you get lethargic, people can't get out of bed, you overthink things. Your lack of drive and motivation that you would usually have to be motivated to be committed to your cause of whatever that may be starts to drop. And when it starts to drop, it's really hard to start climbing back up the hill again. And this is why I'm talking about commitment being such an important thing. And I could relate this to females as well. Like, an interesting conversation that I've had with my fiance is about, her downturns in her monthly cycles, for example. Obviously not a kosher thing for a male to talk about, but it's funny because she started really diving into when is the optimum time within her cycle, in her monthly cycle, to be exercising at her best, to be working on her business at the best, to being the best mum she can be, and when are the times that she really needs to take a back seat, rest, and take that time to accept what's going on and really, accept the moment and really lean back into it and rest. And that's the big part about commitment, is accepting those times that, even though you're committed to a journey, accepting those times that you're going to have days or weeks or months where you're not feeling great. You're going to have downturns. You're going to have downturns in your mood, and it could be triggered by a similar experience like me. Every time I got sick, I was like, oh, this is what's happening. My body's just not recovering. And it's just going back to this thing where I'm probably going to relapse again, or just have that cycle going over and over in my head. And it's something I really had to work on. I was like, this is something I need to get into my head, that it's just a process, and it's an acceptance and an awareness. And it's the exact same thing that happens with stress, anxiety, depression, is awareness that it's going on, acceptance that it's got to be there, because it's a normal part of life. It's a normal part, physically and emotionally, to get stressed, to get anxious, to get depressed, because that's just how our brains work. It's a protection mechanism. It protects us from bad experiences that have been involved in our DNA over thousands and thousands of years. And it's exactly the same when you have downturns in a situation, like when you get sick, or when you get your monthly cycle, or you get a bit of anxiety or depression. You need to go through these moments where you're like, okay, I know what's going on. This is a natural process. It happens to me once a month, whether it's, you're a female, or me, it's like every 6 to 8 weeks. I know this happens to me every 6 to 8 weeks. I get a bit of a virus off Teddy. He brings it home. It's just natural. He gets the virus too. He recovers a little bit quicker than me because he's got a little robust immune system compared to me. So I've got to go through that process where I'm like, okay, I just need to sit back, take this time to rest and relax. And rather than just shutting down completely, figure out what I can do in this space to keep my mind focused on the commitment that I've made to myself to get to where I want to be. And that's the process that I go through now. Whereas in the past, I used to be like, oh, I'm sick, and I'd stop doing anything. I wouldn't walk around the block. I wouldn't exercise. I wouldn't do my meditation. I would just lay on the couch and think, this is it. This is the end. I'm not going to recover from this one. And everything is like grey skies and dull. So when I started working through that process, then I was like, okay, this week, Tom, you're aware of the fact that you're sick. Accept that you're sick. If we really rest here, we take 3 or 4 days and we keep our brain in the right spot, keep it motivated towards the commitment of what it's be, what can I do in this time to keep motivated towards that commitment? So rather than worrying about how much I could exercise, how much I could do jiu-jitsu, how much I could physically do with my energy levels and what my mood was like, because I'd be cranky because I'd be sick, so I'd probably be a bit cranky towards Courtney and Teddy. So I'd sit back and I would start to do things. I'd start to design things on my laptop. I would start to, go back to reading a book that I've been sort of wanting and waiting to read, for example. And going through that process, then when I started to feel a bit better, I was coming out of the other side of it still motivated and still strong towards my commitment. And this is why I keep talking about how important the commitment is to it. And it's a bit like, if I could say, see, look, my nose just runs all the time from this situation anyway. And part of the reason I was thinking about it is this process I'm going through at the moment, going through learning a sales role, which I've always told myself the story I'm not good at. But when I started to tell myself the story that I am good at, one of the things I learned, I've read a very good book. It was Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone. It's a really great book if you've got anything to do with business or selling or anything like that, is knowing the process of how to deal with yourself, deal with human beings, and knowing how to close and doing all this sort of stuff. And a massive thing towards his very first chapter in the book talks about commitment. And it's about commitment to the process. And he relates it back to so many things in life. It's your commitment to want to be wealthy. It's your commitment to want to be healthy. It's commitment if you want to be physically fit, and your commitment to want to get rid of your anxiety and depression. It's your commitment to a sales role. If you're not all the way in, if you're not 100% in, so knowing that when you get the no's, when you're trying to sell something to people, when you have situations where you have your monthly cycle and you have a downturn in your mood, you don't feel great and you're not motivated to do things, if you get sick and you get a downturn in that, it's just knowing that commitment, it's not wavering. So when you come out the other side of that, you continue on with that journey. And like I said, relating it to sales, this process I'm going through now to get to the goal that I wanted to get to, which is for my own business skills to get really good at sales, because it's something that I see good friends of mine that are really good at. And then Courtney, my partner herself, is just an absolute weapon at and why she's so successful in what she does. I'm like, this is a skill that I need to be committed to learning, because I'm going to need it further down the track. So I just fully have thrown myself in. I'm making I'm making a whole person's wage less than I was in my last work contract doing this job. And the only reason and the guy that poached me for the business, he knew that. Even though I've got the ability to make money and good commissions, he knew how much money I was leaving on the table for what I was doing. And he kept ringing me before I started the contract. And he goes, are you sure? Are you in? Like, this is the thing for us. We're recruiting, and, I know it's not that much to you, but it might be something to someone else. So we sort of need to know where you're at. And I said, mate, I am 100% in. I am 100% in. And he was like, oh, okay, no worries. And he's stoked. And he's been pretty stoked with me the last 2-3 weeks. Like, I've doubled and tripled my KPIs and the sales for their business to be operating and functioning how they need it to. And I'm jacking my wage right up from what I'd left on the table in the past. So, and that took me being committed to that process. So I'm just going to leave it there. But I just want to leave you with one little story with me wanting to get committed to the process of getting back to me again. And you think, where you might be, you might think it's impossible and you're starting from rock bottom. And I can tell you what rock bottom feels like. Rock bottom feels like being in a hospital bed, losing my sight, not being able to walk, having my legs swell up to 3 times the size of what they were, being on every bloody drug and oxygen bloody machine and thing that you can think of after spending a stint in ICU. And I made a commitment to myself that day that I'm going to be a fit and healthy father for my son, and I'm going to be there. I'm going to be a fit and healthy husband for my future wife, and I'm going to be a fit and better version of myself coming out of this process, because I hated what I went through, and I hated being there, and I'm going to do everything I can to prevent being back there again. So you know what day one was? Day one was having the energy to slide my legs to the side of the bed and sit up. That was day one. Day two was sliding my legs to the side of the bed and standing up. Day three was sliding my legs up, standing up, taking 2 steps, so on and so forth. I got out of hospital in 11 days after that. 11 days. Because every day I made the mission a little bit further. And there's days that I was like, oh, I don't think I can do it today. And I didn't. So I waited to the next day. But the next day, then I walked a little bit further. Today I'm going to walk to the nurse's desk in the hallway. And then by the end of it, I was doing laps around the ward. And then the day that I went home, we lived up 5 flights of stairs. And I was able to walk up the 5 flights of stairs. And then I made it my mission. I said to Courtney, every day I wanted to go down and up the stairs. I wanted to try and walk down the block. And fast forward to today, I exercise about 13-14 times a week, and I'm a better version and feel better than I ever have, other than my little immune system issues that I have that get me sick every now and again. So be committed to the process. Know your downturns, know your ups and downs, accept your bad moments and your downturns, be aware of them, accept them, do what you can in those processes and situations to just keep moving forward and stay committed. Have a fantastic day.